Hello and welcome to the first video of a new series where I'll be trying to help you find a suitable replacement for a now discontinued ball that you used to love, and for the first one we're going to be talking Hustle ink. Once again, a few shameless plugs to get started. Follow the link in the description or at the end of the video for any of your bowling needs at Bowler's Mart. Supporting them supports me, and don't forget my code Rosdahl10 the next time you go to order anything at CoolWick to get 10% off. They're the ones that keep stuff like this coming. Rotogrip's Hustle ink was undoubtedly the light to medium condition equivalent of a Phase 2, IQ Tour Solid, or High Road. It was an absolute go-to of a ball when you needed a true performance reaction look for lighter to medium oil volumes or transition. Despite being in Roto's entry-level HP1 line, which now, due in large part to the Hustle ink, is considered to be the premier choice for both best bang for your buck and actual effectiveness, it has a 900 and a Tournament of Champions win to its resume. I mean, Joe Navarra and Matt O'Grady are pretty good too, but Hustle ink. So the ink is like a longer and boomier IQ Tour Solid. 253 RG and an 030 diff in 15 pounds for the ink. The IQ Tour is 249 RG and an 029 diff, so the IQ's got a slightly stronger and really just earlier core plus a stronger cover stock. Sometimes the IQ TS can be too early, and the running joke is that it's really good at getting 9, but I've always said 9 is better than S63. The Hustle ink is almost an improvement, same general idea but a bit weaker with a bit more shape. Again, good or improvement is relative. Sometimes the ink will be too weak and wiggly when the IQ Tour is just right, but I think if you take the shine off the ink, it almost fits that role a little better or is actually more versatile. I'm not knocking the IQ Tour at all. It's obviously been around this long for a reason, and the reason for this video is that the Hustle ink isn't, so what do we fill that void with? My two best options are the Hustle Camo and the Electrify Solid, and we'll look at the E-Solid first. The E-Solid is the closest to the San Antonio ink. Now for a quick recap, Hustle inks were initially made in Utah at the Storm plant for a couple years, before then being made at the 900 Global plant in San Antonio for a couple years. Then when the companies merged, they were made for another 6 months to a year or whatever again at the Storm plant before they were discontinued. The brighter blue inks are Utah inks, which is what I was throwing at the beginning, and the more IQ Tour colored darker inks are the San Antonio inks. The Utah inks were longer and sharper, and the San Antonio inks were earlier and smoother, but about the same strength. I don't really think it was a this year high road versus this other year high road type of difference either, which doesn't really exist in the first place, but the ink difference was actually pretty noticeable. I think you can see so far at least that the E-Solid is smoother and earlier than the Utah ink, but talking from experience, the San Antonio ink is pretty close. It's not quite this smooth, but it's closer to the E-Solid than the Utah ink is. The E-Solid is a lot more like a weaker version of an Axiom or an Idol or one of those big strong rolly balls. It's got that same kind of heavy chuggy roll to it, but the weaker shiny cover, it does actually make it down the lane and pop a little. The Hustle Camo is my pick to replace either version of the ink. It's closer to the Utah ink, and like I said in my video, I think it's even an improvement. It's not as sensitive from straight, and it gets back better from deep, and I found myself throwing it a lot more than I expected. I typically don't get to throw a lot of weaker stuff. It's usually too long and boomy, but the Camo controls the lane really well. It revs enough without being faster early, and I wouldn't exactly say it's quick, it's just firm and consistent down lane. For me, it's the perfect blend of shape without having to fight it for length. I can make it do what I want. I can rev it up and get it to pop more if I want without having to worry about it making down the lane. The Electrify Solid I do have to be easy with because it doesn't really rev up fast, it just rolls pretty heavy. The Camo has a much more ink-like shape and motion. It wants to get down the lane easier, and of course because it's also a Hustle, they have the same core, both polished solids. It makes sense that they'd be similar at least, and everyone was kind of expecting this to be the ink replacement in the first place. Also, I think people also generally favored the Utah ink anyway, or considered it to be the true ink if there is such a thing, and I'm happy to report that again, I think the Camo is an upgrade or improvement to the Utah ink. The cover feels a touch stronger, and so it blends wet-dry better, and it gets back from deep better. Obviously the Camo's the winner here, but if you had a San Antonio ink and liked it, you might look at the Electrify Solid. I still think it rolls heavier than any ink period, but it's got a more similar friction response to the San Antonio ink than the Camo does. Now if you're not terribly concerned about exactly how close it is and just want something in that general zone, either one will do, and throw the Burner Solid in the mix at that point as well. If you're really trying to nail it down, I'd go E-Solid to replace the San Antonio ink and the Camo to replace the Utah ink. Thanks for watching, and may the strikes be with you.